And so, this is probably the best horror film that you have never seen. This is JimFLIX. I'm your host Jim, and today my review for the low-budget, found footage, British indie film made in 2013 by Elliot Gouldner. This is The Borderlands. So, The Borderlands. This film is truly a flash in the pan, I want to say. Set in the good old English countryside in the West Country of the UK. It was written and directed by Elliot Gouldner, who, as far as I can tell, has never directed another film since or before. I think he's made a short film, a documentary, which starred David Duchovny. He doesn't even have a Wikipedia page, nor do a lot of the cast of this film. Hence why I call this a bit of a flash in the pan. It's a found footage film, which is very hit and miss. There were a lot of found footage films made during the 2000s, but this film is interesting. We begin by meeting one of our main characters, Gray, who, as the film opens, is setting up some surveillance equipment, cameras, audio equipment. He seems to be a little bit of a techie. He's setting up a load of cameras around a cottage that he is staying in, and we slowly start to learn that he's there on a job. And then we meet another individual who is also helping him with the job that they have been given, Deacon, who is a priest and seems to be somewhat of a troubled soul. He's a little grizzled, a little grumpy it seems, a bit rough around the edges, and possibly an alcoholic, the type of guy who looks like he has seen some things in his time. So, with two of our main characters assembled, Gray and Deacon, we learn that they're staying in a cottage. They have to be wearing these little headsets, recording everything related to the job that they're on. The job is basically that they are investigating some strange occurrences at a local church near the cottage in the West Country of the UK. So they go to the church, they start to set up some of their camera equipment, they meet the very, very creepy Father Krillick, who is a bit of an oddball it seems. And there, he explains the strange occurrences that have been going on. He shows Gray and Deacon a video. The video essentially shows him doing a sermon, a baptism, I believe, and things start to just get knocked off a table behind him. A few bangs, a few creaks, essentially paranormal activity by all accounts. Deacon, the priest, seems skeptical. Gray seems pretty convinced just by the video alone. So they go away and the third member of their team arrives, Mark Amadan, and that there is the team assembled, ready to investigate paranormal or seemingly paranormal occurrences that are going on at this church. So Gray is played by an actor called Robin Hill. Deacon is played by Gordon Kennedy. Father Mark Amadan by Aidan McArdle. So that is the basic storyline laid out for you. They begin their investigations, the three of them, and things just get stranger and stranger, more intense, until we arrive at the pretty insane and scary conclusion. So, the first thing to say about this film is that it is a found footage film, which again is very hit and miss. These films became very popular in the 2000s, I want to say, and the reason is that they were just so easy to make, didn't involve a lot of real kind of filmmaking skill, so they were everywhere, and a lot of them were done very, very badly. Some of them were really queasy and difficult to watch because it's a lot of surveillance camera footage, you know, camcorder footage, whatever the case may be. It all began, I believe, with the Blair Witch, and I think Paranormal Activity was one of the first ones, and then from there, just there's a slew of them everywhere. The Borderlands does it very, very well, I have to say. That's one of the first things that I need to state about this film, as it may be a big turn-off to a lot of people. But it is done well. The use of the surveillance footage, the found footage, as it were, is justified within the logic of the film. It's a big part of why you're looking at found footage or surveillance camera footage, and it is done very, very well. There are a few little issues with it, which I'm going to mention later towards the end of this review, but they're not huge issues, and in some case, in my opinion, potentially helps the film. It's a horror film, so is it scary? It is creepy. It's a slow burn. It takes a bit of time get going. It's quite disciplined in that regard, which I appreciated. It has more characterization than you would typically get, I would say, in a film of this budget and caliber of actors and what have you. The acting is solid. They do a great job. It's not necessarily polished, but I think it really works within the logic of the film again. But before anything else, I do want to mention one thing which I really liked about this film is the sound design. So there's a lot of creaks, whispering, the sound of a baby crying, slamming of doors, and I think it works really well. There's quite a bit of dynamic range and a lot of silence and a lot of sort of tranquil scenes. So when you do get these moments where there's banging and some of the paranormal activity is going on, it does have some impact. It's quite hard, quite raw, and it is creepy. I think the echo of the church where a lot of this footage takes place really helps, because a bang of a big old wooden church door, it gets you. And so I briefly mentioned the acting. Well, I want to just go into that in a bit more detail now at this point. So the two actors who play Gray and Deacon, they are very good. They do a great job in this film. They've got a really sort of interesting odd couple kind of vibe, a little bit of tension, some banter. They're very different characters, but they do bounce off each other quite well. You've got the kind of happy-go-lucky joker, bit of a lad in Gray, and you've got the grizzled, serious character in Deacon. So well done to those two. They do a great job, and a large part of what makes this film a fun and interesting watch. Mark as well, I'm not going to forget him. He does a great job as well. He is a nice third member of the team, basically. The other two stand out a little bit more, but I think he bolsters their characters well. He works well as the third member. Father Krillick, played by Luke Neal, I believe his name is. He's creepy, not necessarily the most polished of actors, but he's creepy and works very well for this film. Again, why I call this film flash in the pan, it just seems that everything worked. The slow burn of the story worked. The use of the cameras, the found footage elements worked. The story seemed to work. The ending most definitely worked. So again, a very simple story in a lot of ways. Takes its time building to the climax, and the climax is fantastic and really, really makes this film. So many films, the first couple of acts are fantastic and it just kind of peters out towards the end, and that third act doesn't work. I would say that this is a film where the first two acts are good, it's watchable, you're engaged, you want to know what's going on, and the third act just bam, nails it and really takes this up from, maybe a 6.2 to, well, I'll give my rating at the end, but it really elevates the whole film. Amazingly done. Incredibly, and I don't think these are spoilers, but if you're concerned, turn off now, watch the film and maybe come back. But it's very creepy. It builds perfectly. You're getting more and more and more tense as everything is getting more and more claustrophobic. It is hard to watch. It gets your heart going. Few beads of sweat. Amazing. So, are there any issues with this film? Yes, it is not entirely without its problems. I think the problems are subjective, to be honest with you, meaning that I think some of the issues could also be seen as some of the strengths of the film. So, what do I mean by that? Well, the acting is really good, but like I said, it's not necessarily polished, and it feels, dare I say, a tiny bit amateur, although they do a fantastic job. You're kind of aware you're not watching the finest of actors, the creme de la creme. It does feel a little bit kind of, I don't want to sound insulting, but a little bit soap opera-y, slightly amateurish, which could be a problem in a lot of cases, but I think in in terms of this film, it actually potentially works because it makes the characters seem a little bit more real. They seem like two genuine, normal, real guys, particularly the main two characters, but Mark and Father Krillic as well. They just seem normal. So to me, it gives them another layer of vulnerability almost. And it makes the film a bit more jarring when you come to that climax, and it's just so removed from the very grounded beginning. Grounded, some of the paranormal activities are not grounded, but they're quite subtle until the ending. So I think that the acting could be seen as a bit amateurish, but I think it was done well, and it just makes the characters, in my opinion, just seem a little bit more real, a little bit more vulnerable, a bit more realistic. The only other little issue that I think is potentially some people may find the film a bit boring in the beginning, beginning 1 or 2 acts, and may turn off before you get to that incredible climax. I would hope not. In my opinion, this film is definitely worth your time, so stick with it. I don't think it's boring at all. I found it engaging the very first time I saw it, and the second and third. I was never bored, but I'm just trying to put my brain in other people's, or my head in other people's, just to kind of, just to critique the film as best I can. But I didn't think that was the case. One last little thing. I don't know if this is just my opinion or just a personal issue that I have. Again, it's similar to the acting. I think it could be seen as a strength or a weakness of the film. It did remind me a little bit of Peep Show, the way that it is filmed, because the characters, like I said, have these head cams which are fastened to the side of their head next to their eyes. And so overall, the Borderlands is absolutely fantastic, a lot of fun, very creepy, scary, claustrophobic, entertaining. Do I need to say more? Is this film worth your time? Absolutely yes. I'm going to give this film a 7.3 out of 10. Go out there and give it a watch, particularly if you are a horror fan. Like and subscribe. Comment down below if you've seen the film, any of your thoughts on the film, where I've got this review right, where I've got it wrong. And I'll see you in the next one. Take care.